October 25, 1944. Samar Island, Eastern Philippines. 6:58 a.m. The sun breaks over the Philippine Sea, casting long shadows across the water. The air is thick with salt and the distant hum of machinery. On the bridge of the Japanese battleship Yamato, Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita lifts his binoculars and scans the horizon. His fleet, the most powerful surface force Japan has assembled in months, steams southward at 20 knots. 4 battleships, including the Yamato and her sister ship Musashi. 6 heavy cruisers. 2 light cruisers. 11 destroyers. A steel armada carrying 18-inch guns capable of hurling shells weighing more than a small automobile over 25 miles. Kurita has sailed through the San Bernardino Strait during the night, evading American submarines and air patrols. His orders are clear: destroy the American invasion fleet anchored at Leyte Gulf. Sink the transports. Kill the soldiers wading ashore. Cut the arteries of MacArthur's return to the Philippines. This is Japan's last chance to inflict a decisive blow, to force the Americans into a negotiated peace before the homeland itself is invaded. The operation is called Shogo, Victory Operation. It is not a plan born of confidence. It is a plan born of desperation. At precisely 6:58 a.m., a lookout shouts. Masts on the horizon. Kurita's heart pounds. He has found them. The American carriers. The flat tops that have been bleeding his navy dry for 3 years. If he can sink even a few, the war might turn. Japan might survive. He orders full speed ahead. The battleships surge forward, black smoke pouring from their stacks. Gun crews scramble to their stations. Rangefinders calibrate. The Yamato's main battery, 9 18-inch rifles and 3 massive turrets, rotates toward the distant silhouettes. But Kurita has made a fatal mistake. Those are not fleet carriers. They are escort carriers. Baby flat tops. Jeep carriers. Ships built on merchant hulls, slow, thin-skinned, designed to support amphibious landings, not fight surface battles. They carry outdated aircraft, minimal ammunition, and crews who have never trained for this kind of engagement. And protecting them are not cruisers or battleships. They are destroyers and destroyer escorts. Tin cans. Ships weighing less than 3,000 tons, carrying guns no larger than 5 inches. Ships that, on paper, should not survive the next 2 hours. What follows is not a battle. It is a mathematical impossibility. It is 3 destroyers and 4 destroyer escorts charging directly into the guns of the most powerful battleship ever built. It is a moment when doctrine, logic, and the iron laws of naval warfare collapse. It is the moment when Japanese admirals, staring through their binoculars at ships 1/10 their size refusing to run, begin to doubt everything they thought they knew about this war. This is the Battle off Samar. And this is the story of what the Japanese said when they realized they were losing. The Imperial Japanese Navy has spent decades preparing for this war. The strategy is called Kantai Kessen, decisive battle doctrine. It is a philosophy inherited from Admiral Togo Heihachiro, who annihilated the Russian fleet at Tsushima in 1905. The idea is simple: build the largest, most powerful battleships in the world. Lure the enemy fleet into a single, climactic engagement. Destroy them with superior firepower. Win the war in an afternoon. The Yamato is the ultimate expression of this doctrine. She displaces 72,000 tons fully loaded. Her main guns fire shells that weigh 3,200 pounds. Her armor belt is 16 inches thick, proof against any weapon the Americans are believed to possess. She is a floating fortress, a ship designed to win the battle that will decide the fate of empires. Japanese naval officers call her Hotel Yamato because she is so luxurious, so well protected, that assignment aboard her feels like a vacation compared to the meat grinder of the Pacific Air War. But by October 1944, the Kantai Kessen doctrine is a ghost. The decisive battle Japan planned never happened. Instead, the Americans fought a different war. They built carriers, not battleships. They sank Japanese shipping, not Japanese dreadnoughts. They bypassed strongholds, seized airfields, and turned the Pacific into an American lake one island at a time. The Yamato has spent most of the war anchored in Japan, her massive guns silent, her crew growing soft, because there is no fuel to sail her and no targets worth the risk. Now, finally, she is at sea. And Kurita believes he has found the target that justifies her existence. American carriers. The ships that have humiliated Japan at Midway, at the Philippine Sea, at every engagement since 1942. If he can sink them, the sacrifice of his fleet will be worth it. The Emperor's Navy will die with honor. But the men on those American escort carriers are not thinking about honor. They are thinking about survival. Rear Admiral Clifton Sprague commands Task Unit 77. 4, 3, callsign Taffy 3. 6 escort carriers. 3 destroyers. 4 destroyer escorts. His mission this morning was supposed to be routine: provide air cover for the landings at Leyte, hunt submarines, strafe Japanese positions ashore. His ships are not equipped for surface combat. His aircraft are loaded with high-explosive bombs and depth charges, not armor-piercing munitions. His destroyers carry torpedoes, but only enough for one salvo. His guns are popguns compared to the Yamato's rifles. When the lookouts report Japanese battleships on the horizon, Sprague's first reaction is disbelief. Then confusion. Then, finally, cold, paralyzing fear. He radios for help. The nearest American fast carriers are hours away. The battleships that were supposed to be guarding San Bernardino Strait, Admiral Hoel's fleet, are gone, chasing a Japanese decoy force to the north. Taffy 3 is alone. Sprague has 2 choices. He can run south, hope his carrier's 80-knot maximum speed can outpace the Japanese battleship's 30 knots, and pray his pilots can slow the enemy long enough for help to arrive. Or he can do something insane. He can order his destroyers to attack. Not to screen. Not to lay smoke. To attack. To charge directly into the guns of the Yamato and her sisters, buy time with their lives, and hope the carriers can escape. It is not a choice. It is a suicide order. And Sprague gives it. The destroyer USS Johnston is the first to respond. Her captain, Commander Ernest E. Evans, is a Cherokee from Oklahoma. He is known for 2 things: his aggression and his disregard for protocol. When he assumed command of the Johnston in 1943, he told his crew, "This is going to be a fighting ship. I intend to go in harm's way, and anyone who doesn't want to go along had better get off right now." No one got off. At 7:10 a.m., Evans does not wait for orders. He orders flank speed and turns directly toward the Japanese fleet. The Johnston is alone. The other destroyers are still forming up. Evans does not care. He closes to 10,000 yards and launches a full spread of 10 torpedoes at the heavy cruiser Kumano. Then he opens fire with his 5-inch guns, shells that bounce off battleship armor like pebbles off a tank. The Japanese are stunned. A single destroyer is attacking them. Not retreating. Not screening. Attacking. The heavy cruiser Kumano takes a torpedo hit in the bow, blowing off her entire forward section. She slows, turns away, and limps out of the battle. One of Kurita's cruisers is crippled in the first 10 minutes by a ship that weighs less than her anchor. But the Johnston's charge has cost her. The battleship Congo and the cruiser Haguro bracket her with salvos. Shells scream overhead, geysers of water exploding around her hull. Then a 14-inch shell from the Congo punches through the Johnston's aft deckhouse. It detonates inside her after-engine room, killing dozens instantly. Another shell destroys her gyro compass. Another knocks out half her boilers. The Johnston slows, trailing smoke, her stern a twisted ruin. Commander Evans is blown off his feet. Shrapnel shreds his uniform and tears open his hand, severing 2 fingers. Blood pours from the wound. He wraps it in a rag and returns to the bridge. The Johnston is crippled, but she is not dead. Evans orders emergency repairs and retreats into a smokescreen. His ship has been in the fight for 15 minutes. She has perhaps an hour left to live. But behind him, the rest of Taffy 3's destroyers and destroyer escorts are charging. The USS Hoel, the USS Herman, the USS Samuel B. Roberts. Tiny ships with crews barely out of their teens, men who have never seen a battleship, captains who are making decisions that will be studied in naval academies for the next 80 years. Vice Admiral Kurita, standing on the Yamato's bridge, watches this unfold with something close to incomprehension. His battleships are being attacked by ships that should not be attacking. His cruisers are maneuvering to avoid torpedoes from vessels that should be running. His formation, carefully planned, is breaking apart as each ship takes evasive action independently. The Americans are not fighting like a navy. They are fighting like pirates. They are charging in, launching torpedoes at point-blank range, firing their guns until the barrels glow, and then disappearing into smoke screens before his ships can coordinate fire. And the carriers, those thin-skinned, helpless escort carriers, are launching aircraft. Not to flee. To attack. The pilots are flying obsolete Wildcats and Avengers loaded with the wrong ordnance. They make dry runs, diving on battleships without bombs just to force them to maneuver. They strafe the bridges of cruisers with machine guns that cannot penetrate armor but can kill lookouts and rangefinders. One pilot, out of ammunition and desperate, throws a Coke bottle at a Japanese destroyer. The Japanese have trained for 30 years to fight a decisive battle. They have rehearsed formations, practiced gunnery, studied American doctrine. But no one trained them for this. No one told them what to do when the enemy refuses to follow the rules. When destroyers act like battleships. When carriers fight back with their bare hands. And slowly, impossibly, Kurita begins to hesitate. The destroyer USS Samuel B is hit at 8:51 a.m. She is the smallest ship in Taffy 3, a destroyer escort displacing just 1,700 tons, a vessel built to hunt submarines, not duel with battleships. Her captain, Lieutenant Commander Robert W. Copeland, has ordered her into the fight alongside the full-size destroyers. For over an hour, the Sammy B has been firing her two 5-inch guns non-stop, pumping out over 600 rounds, more than any destroyer escort in history. Her crew loads shells so fast the paint on the barrels burns off. The deck around the guns is ankle-deep in spent brass casings. Then the Japanese cruiser Chikuma finds her range. A salvo of 8-inch shells slams into the Sammy B's hull. One penetrates the forward engine room, detonating inside. The blast kills everyone inside instantly and ruptures steam lines. Superheated steam at 600 degrees fills the compartments. Men die screaming, their flesh cooked off their bones. Another shell penetrates the aft magazine. The explosion blows out the ship's bottom. Water pours in. The Samuel B. begins to list. Copeland orders abandon ship. The crew jumps into the sea. They watch as their ship, the vessel they have fought beyond all reason, rolls over and sinks. She has been in commission for less than a year. She has fought for 90 minutes. She has fired every torpedo, every shell, every round of ammunition she carried. And she has died like a battleship. On the Yamato, Kurita is receiving reports that make no sense. His cruisers are reporting torpedo hits. His destroyers are reporting aircraft attacks from multiple directions. His flagship is maneuvering constantly to avoid torpedoes from ships that should have been sunk an hour ago. His force has superior speed, superior firepower, superior numbers. But the Americans are everywhere. They are in the smoke. They are on his flanks. They are behind him. His carefully coordinated attack has dissolved into a brawl, every ship fighting independently, captains making decisions without orders because the radio is jammed with panicked voices. And then Kurita makes the decision that will haunt him for the rest of his life. At 9:11 a.m., he orders a general retreat. The most powerful surface fleet Japan has put to sea in months, with the American carriers in sight, turns north and sails away. Kurita later claims he believed he was facing fleet carriers, not escort carriers. He claims his forces were too disorganized to continue. He claims he feared American airstrikes from the north. But his officers know the truth. He panicked. He looked at the chaos around him, destroyers that would not die, carriers that fought like cruisers, aircraft swarming his ships like hornets, and he lost his nerve. He had been told the Americans were soft, that their morale was weak, that they would break under pressure. But these Americans did not break. They charged. And that was something Kurita could not process. After the battle, Japanese officers struggled to explain what happened. Captain Toshio Abe of the cruiser Tone writes in his after-action report, "The enemy's small ships attacked with a ferocity we have not seen before. Their determination was beyond comprehension. They showed no regard for their own survival." Rear Admiral Tamiji Koyanagi, Kurita's chief of staff, later admits, "We did not understand what kind of men we were fighting. We thought Americans valued their lives above all. But these men threw their ships at us as if death meant nothing." The destroyer Johnston finally sinks at 10:10 a.m. She has been in the fight for 3 hours, long after she should have been at the bottom of the sea. Commander Evans is last seen on the bridge, refusing to abandon ship, standing at attention as the water rises around him. Japanese destroyers pass through the survivors in the water. One destroyer captain, seeing the wreckage and the exhausted American sailors clinging to debris, orders his crew to stand at attention. They salute. It is the highest honor one warrior can offer another. Then they sail on, because they have no room to take prisoners and no time to stop. In total, Taffy 3 loses 2 escort carriers, 2 destroyers, and 1 destroyer escort. Over 1,000 American sailors die. But they sink 3 Japanese cruisers, damage 4 more, and force Kurita to retreat. The invasion fleet at Leyte Gulf is untouched. MacArthur wades ashore on schedule. The Philippines are liberated. Japan loses. The Battle of Samar is studied in every naval war college in the world. Not because of the tactics. Not because of the technology. But because of the moment when numerical superiority, firepower, and logic lost to something that cannot be measured. Courage. Defiance. The refusal to accept that the fight is over just because the math says it is. The Japanese understood Bushido, the way of the warrior. They understood honor and sacrifice. But they did not understand this. They did not understand men who fought not because they were ordered to, not because the emperor commanded it, but because their captain said, "Follow me," and they believed him. They did not understand sailors who laughed while loading shells, who joked over the radio while their ship was sinking, who sang as they jumped into the sea. The Japanese fought to avoid shame. The Americans fought because it never occurred to them not to. There is a photograph, taken weeks after the battle, of a life ring floating in the Philippine Sea. Stenciled on it in white paint are the words, USS Johnston. Beneath it, in smaller letters, "Don't give up the ship." It is a slogan from another war, another century, the War of 1812. But it is the same idea. The same defiance. The same refusal to bow. That life ring is the symbol of what the Japanese admirals saw that morning off Samar. They saw men who would not give up the ship. Not when it was burning. Not when it was sinking. Not when every law of war said they should surrender. And that broke something in the Japanese command. Because if small ships would not surrender, if tiny destroyers would charge battleships, if men in the water would still salute their flag, then how could Japan ever win? How could they break a nation that did not know how to break? Admiral Kurita never commanded a fleet again. He spent the rest of the war ashore, preparing for the invasion of Japan that never came. After the surrender, he lived quietly, refusing interviews, refusing to explain his decision to retreat. But those who knew him said he never slept well. That he woke in the night, sweating, seeing destroyers in the dark. The men of Taffy 3 did not think of themselves as heroes. They thought of themselves as lucky. Lucky to survive. Lucky to be rescued. Lucky to go home. But they had done something that no amount of luck could explain. They had looked at the largest battleship in the world, at an armada that could have sunk them with a single salvo, and they had charged. They had bought time with their lives, and in buying that time, they had won. October 25, 1944. Samar Island, Eastern Philippines. The sun sets over a sea littered with debris. Life rafts. Oil slicks. Bodies. In the water, men cling to wreckage, singing to stay awake, telling jokes to fight off shock. Above them, rescue aircraft circle, dropping supplies, radioing positions. And on the horizon, the Japanese fleet retreats, the Yamato's massive silhouette growing smaller, her guns silent, her decks crowded with sailors who cannot understand what just happened. One of them, a young ensign, turns to his captain and asks the question every Japanese officer is thinking, "Sir, why did we retreat? We had them." The captain, staring at the empty sea, says nothing for a long time. Then, quietly, "Because they would not run. And we did not know what to do with that." That is the truth the Japanese admirals learned off Samar. Not that American ships were stronger. Not that American guns were bigger. But that American sailors, when cornered, when outnumbered, when death was certain, would not do the reasonable thing. They would do the impossible thing. And that made all the difference.